We'll talk more about London, of course, a lot of fun. They're much more on Thursday night action, but it's time for the
Big Block.
All right, no secret that Vontaze Burfict is not one of the Steelers' favorite people, right? Favorite opponents, let's just say that. Yesterday, quarterback Ben Roethlisberger claimed that Burfict crossed the line in Pittsburgh's come-from-behind win this past Sunday. Take a listen to this.
When he hits AB and knocks AB and his guy out, that very next play, I mean, everyone knows AB leaves the game. He knows he knocked AB out. He's standing there as I'm coming to the line of scrimmage, points to Juju and says, "You're next." I mean, to me, that's you're threatening somebody, right? You know you just knocked somebody out, and now you're saying, "You're next." I mean, that to me, that is completely uncalled for, and that's where I think I had the biggest issue. To me, when you threaten someone else to take them out of the game by hitting them or whatever, that's crossing the line, and that's when the league needs to do something for sure.
So there's Burfict saying that, but then there's also Big Ben talking about it openly to the media. And Nate, I don't know the rules, the code of the locker room.
Unwritten rules, Kay?
I would love to know. So I'm sure you've talked some trash in your career.
Yeah.
We've heard that from several of your opponents throughout the years. What is your reaction to Big Ben sort of airing out what happened in action?
Well, one, I'm a little bit surprised because Big Ben coming out and airing out what's said on the field, like I've heard so much worse than that, and I kept that in-house. I talk to my teammates, I'll go back to the huddle, and we'll address that on the field. Even going back to last year when Juju Smith-Schuster, one of our favorite players, he laid a big smackdown on Burfict, I believe it was, and he said after the game to the world, that was karma. So if you're going to call out Burfict, then you have to also call out your own teammates because within this rivalry, things are said on the field and they stay on the field. As long as Big Ben didn't get hurt and Burfict didn't stick his helmet into his or knock him out the game or even take it off the field into the tunnel, I'm perfectly fine with what he said. If I sat here and said out loud all the things that were said to me and sometimes what I said to other players, I wouldn't be on the show, okay? Because these words are not suitable for kids. So Burfict just said, "You're next." He could have been talking about anything. You're next to be flat on your back. You're next to take this L. You're next to take whatever. I think Big Ben sometimes, and I love Big Ben, he's a legend, soon to be Hall of Famer. Sometimes he's a little bit sensitive. And right there, it showed his sensitivity.
I look at Ben, and I'm trying to, Ben's 36. He's got a family. He's got a wife. He's got a life. Like, I'm wondering if he's looking at it and being like, dude, like, come on, like we're all in on this together. Like we're making good money here. We're having a good time. Like let's not try to hurt anybody. Remember, this was a history here. Le'Veon Bell got knocked out of a game by Burfict, right? Yeah. Obviously that play happened. Antonio Brown was the one who called it karma after Juju knocks out Burfict. Like it's getting to the point where it's dangerous. Remember Ryan Shazier got hurt against the Bengals in a game last year. Like I almost see if Ben's like trying to be the parent in the room and be like, all right, it's one thing to play tough, but when you start saying you're next, that's when me as a dad with kids and with a life and money in the bank, I start thinking to myself, health and safety wise, dude, we're all in this together. As much as we're competitors, chill out.
Just take it easy, man.
Just take it easy. Like, relax, dude.
But that's not every player, though.
That's what I'm saying. Ben is probably thinking.
Certain guys can dim the light. And I've always thought that there's individuals that could dim it, and that means they go into the game and are like, you know what, I'm going to just chill out a little bit. I'm not going to be as turned up. There's other guys, and it's basically on or off. And with Burfict, it is on. There is no dim switch. When he's off the field.
Has there ever been a guy that you beefed with on the field and you saw maybe like a couple months later off the field and it still carried over?
Yeah, there's individuals that I thought when I ran into these guys, whether it's in L.A. and Vegas, and I was going to have to fight them. But then I realized after
Tell me a story.
coming off the
what
field.
is that? Because that's so interesting to me because they hate Burfict. They hate him.
Well, listen, anytime I was in a division rival, and that's the NFC North, where it was the NFC West, I thought the guys that I talked trash with, I didn't like. LaRon Landry, safety, he was talking crazy to me one game. He caught me slipping on a simple drag route, and he knocked me on my feet. The hit looked worse than it really was. I get up, and I'm just looking at him like, all right, you got me. He starts barking. He's barking. He's talking about me. He's talking about my mom. He's talking crazy. And I'm thinking to myself, man, this dude's really going over the top. So I went up to him after one of the plays, and I was like, man, you need to chill out. And he's like, man, forget that. I don't know you. You don't know me, whatever. So in my head, I'm thinking, I'm going to have to fight this dude. Now, mind you, I've only been in a couple fights on the field. I just don't do that. But I'm like, I'm going to have to fight this dude. To the point after the game, I walked up to Calvin Johnson. I said, hey, listen, I'm not going to shake hands, and I'm not going to take my helmet off. I have to go address something. If you see some fists swinging, just make sure you don't let anybody hit me from behind. He was like, I got your back. As I'm walking towards Landry, he's walking towards me. I'm like, here we go. Heart starts racing. I'm about to be fighting on the field. Hope I don't embarrass my family or get a huge fine after this. As he gets closer to me, he's like, hey, 13, you know it's all love, man. I'm just keeping it in between the lines. And I'm like, man, am I tripping? So to your point, at that point, I had to hit the reset and be like, man, Nate, yeah, I got to chill out. I got to chill out. But that's me. That's Nate Burleson, level-headed. I look at things optimistically. It's all rainbows and smiles for me. But there's other players, they see dark, and they go dark. And that's how they play the game, and that's how they play at a high level.
Vontaze doesn't have that it's all love moment. You know what I mean?
It doesn't exist.
That's what stays one way.
Yeah, in watching him as a fan, like, Vontaze is the reason that parents get into fistfights at AWSO soccer games, because it's like he's the problem kid out there. He's the one who's hitting and who's kicking and who's not playing by the and is going to hurt my kid. So I respect the code and the laws of leaving on the field. But Vontaze Burfict has transcended that. There's something called martial law where they roll in the tank. What is it, those movies like The Purge?
So this is martial law
We've declared The Purge and martial law in Steelers-Bengals because I honestly think Ben's like, never mind Juju, I could be next.
Yes, that's it.
Like he's gonna end my career one of these games. I genuinely mean that. And I also think it's fascinating that the silence is deafening coming from the Bengals. We have not had one of these guys who adheres to the code and the laws saying, you know, Vontaze has got to chill out. In fact, on the contrary, most defend him. Most are apologists. Everybody, current and former players from Whitworth to Dunlap have always said it's the scrutiny he gets. Vontaze plays the game a different way. Because I don't care if you played pro ball or you played Pop Warner or high school or anything. The dog on your team, like the bad dog, is the guy that you want to play with.
Facts.
You love the guy who's dirty. That's why the guys love Richie Incognito. They love him because when you're out there, you want Vontaze on your side. So the Bengals don't say squat, man. They love him.
Dennis Rodman, prime example. We love 90s NBA.
Fair.
He was nasty, and he made teams better.
Excellent points made by all. We have football tomorrow.
Okay.
On NFL Network, kicking off Week 7, and it's in the desert. We've got the Cardinals hosting the Broncos. You can see it, of course, right here. And we have another talkative gentleman, Big Ben, talking about the Bengals, and Broncos superstar defender Von Miller talking about how Denver's going to end their 4-game losing streak, having this to say.
Last 2 weeks, I mean, we had a 200-yard rusher. We had a 200-yard rusher the last 2 weeks, so, you know, I get where he's coming from, but, you know, that was the last 2 weeks. You know, this week is totally different. We're going to get everybody's best this week. They're going to get our whole team's best, and that starts with me. They're going to get my best this week, and we're going to go out there and we're going to kick their ass. This is the way I'm feeling.
That's how he's feeling.
There's a Bronco over his mouth when he said it.
Is that right? I didn't see that.
It's kind of cool.
Let's see. Obviously, a lot of reaction on both sides here. Let's send it over to James Palmer.
The Broncos have lost 4 straight, and in the last 2 games, stopping the run has been the issue, particularly, Vance Joseph says, when they're in their nickel defense. Well, they've given up over 200 yards to a back in each of the last 2 games. No other team in the history of the NFL has done that. Well, tackling has been a big issue, and Vance Joseph told me it's a want to. It's a desire to tackle. He said to me, if you and I are in an alley and I have to tackle you, I'm going to do it because I want to. So I asked Bradley Chubb, where did that want to go? And he said, we have to go out there and not play selfish football. We have to go out and play for the guy that's to the left of us, to the right of us, stay in our assignments, stay in our gaps, and make sure we stop the run. It's a want to is the term that they've been using. But also players around the league have told me that when they go and watch the film, tackling has been an issue when they take a look at the Denver Bronco defense. That has to change when you face David Johnson on Thursday. Let's go to Omar Ruiz now with the Cardinals.
Thank you, James. No trash talk from the Cardinals. Instead, plenty of praise for Von Miller. Josh Rosen telling me when studying the Broncos defense, he noticed that everything they do runs through Von Miller as the leader of that front 7. Not only is Miller a great player, he makes other good players around him like Bradley Chubb even better. A reporter asked Larry Fitzgerald what he's seen from Von Miller this season, as if to suggest that just because the Broncos are struggling, that Von Miller might not be playing as well. Fitzgerald seemed to be so taken aback by the assertion, he broke out his iPad right then and there and started breaking down Miller tape. One thing he pointed out was that Miller makes so many plays that don't show up on the stat sheet. For instance, when a quarterback is feeling pressure from Miller, he'll throw the ball before his feet are set. The pass will sail wide and it'll go incomplete. Just one example why Fitzgerald called Miller a game wrecker, someone they'll have to have an answer for at all times. Let's go back to you now in the studio, Kay.
Things will be heated in the desert. Appreciate you, Omar, and James Palmer. Guys, Thoughts on what Von Miller had to say? They have to be frustrated. They lost 4 straight games.
I loved it. You know what I loved more than what he said? How he looked. He looked like a grizzly bear. He's just mad. He's frustrated. You know, Von, he got the swag. He got the sauce. He can get the lineup and be fresh shaven. He was like, nah, I'm about to go back to the grittiness, the nastiness of football. And I'm not going to sit there and be polite. I'm going to tell it like it is. And it wasn't really a message. Sometimes you say things out loud for your team to hear. Like, even like, you know what, we're going to win. That's talking to your team. I hope they have my back. We're going to go in and win this game. But when you say we're going to kick their ass, you're talking to the opposing team and every player on that roster. That's calling out the other squad. So for me, I love it because it doesn't happen anymore. Everybody's all polite and they want to shake hands and change jerseys. He's like, nah, we're not playing well, and I guarantee you we're going to kick the Cardinals' ass. And I think that's great because a guy like that, he's going to back up his words.
I was at the AFC Championship game a couple years ago when they beat the snot out of Tom Brady and Von Miller was unstoppable. I was at the Super Bowl when Cam Newton was just a sitting duck and Von Miller was coming from all angles. I've seen Von Miller single-handedly dominate games. The past 2 weeks, teams have run for more than 200 yards.
500 rushing yards.
500 rushing yards on Von Miller. And we celebrate Von Miller. Super Bowl MVP, Hall of Fame player.
Right.
But that's like a really good actor being in 2 straight bombs of movies.
Gotta have a hit.
And looking at the agent and saying, I'm still good, right? Like, we're going to get another one. Hollywood stops calling. And if they keep on giving up 200 yards rushing, we have to stop calling the Broncos defense. And we have to stop calling Von Miller that dude, because that dude has to put a stop to it. So that reaction, I think a lot of that is just frustration, and a lot of that is, hey, wait a second, look in the mirror. I don't give up 200 yards. I know it's not a one-man team, but this can't happen anymore.
It's good. I think there's 2 ways to go with that. When you hear a guy say, we're going to kick their ass, you could roll your eyes and say, dude, you're not doing anything. I've seen you guys get stomped 2 weeks in a row. You have no leverage to say that. Or you could say, Von Miller was just told by the head coach it's a matter of want to. You guys don't want to. And then the icon, Elway, says you guys are soft. I want to see Von Miller get mad about it. We've met with Von. He lives on Planet Von. He's very eccentric. It's a different guy. I've never seen that Von Miller
haven't
before.
either.
He got called out bad, and he says, all right, this is what we're going to do about it. Because to your point, Peter, it's also almost like we've a little moved on from Von. Khalil Mack is now the guy, and there's other guys. Von's had his time, and it's over. And Von needs a huge weekend, and I love that he said that. I want that reaction from him.
And it's not just Von, though. The 500 yards rushing is crazy. But you have Case Keenum with more interceptions than he has touchdowns. They have a lot of costly turnovers. Emmanuel Sanders, you're one of my favorite wide receivers in the league, but you know I'm talking to you a little bit here on that. And when they have to minimize mistakes, and then they can kick ass. So do that, and then do that.
You know, kick it or kiss it. You know what I'm saying? One or the other, guys.
Either way, it'll be a good one. Thursday Night Football, a primetime duel.